get this old Jeep Wrangler ready for the ultimate adventure. Right here on the Dirthead shed. I'm going to take this thing on ultimate adventure. There's a bunch of requirements just to go on the trip, plus a bunch of maintenance that this thing needs, just because it's kind of junk. Let's get to the shop. Alright, let's dig in on this YJ and get it ready for ultimate adventure. I just finished this Jeep about 4 months ago. Actually, Fred and I just finished this Jeep about 4 months ago on Dirt Everyday, and it's a really cool build. It's got bigger axles than it had stock. It's got a coil link front suspension. It's got a really cool Midnight Metalworks transfer case in it. So this thing is pretty dialed in, but there's a bunch of stuff that I need to finish up on it and fix. It needs a clutch right now. It needs rear main seal right now. It needs a timing chain set. There's a bunch of sort of maintenance stuff that I got to catch up on, which we're going to dig into first. And then once I get that done, we can go back and we can work on things that are fun, like a roll cage and new seats and stuff like that. So follow along, we're going to dig into this thing. It's time to get it ready for the ultimate adventure. Camping, wheeling, road tripping, doing all this fun stuff out of a Jeep and running some of the hardest trails that we can find. Look at this. The inside of the tire is totally caked in gear oil. I built this front axle, and for some reason ever since I put it together it's just been puking gear oil out, so that's also going to be a problem we got to sort out. Alright, we're getting into it now. I got the belly pan off of this. It's got a Barnes high clearance flat belly deal. It's actually like a 2-inch drop on it, and that allowed me to have enough room under here so that the transmission mount can be separate from that. This is like a pretty neat little trick that I did. Built this when we had it in the shop on Dirt Everyday, but it didn't really make the cut, so you can kind of see some of these things that we did, how much work they are, and get a little more in-depth view of it now. This is a Barnes universal transmission mount kit, and then I also made the center bracket for it so that I could reuse the stock Jeep transmission mount. So pretty slick little piece. A lot of work went into that. And this is the transfer case. This is the Midnight Metalworks D300 case, kind of like the crown jewel of this Jeep. So I'm going to pull that out, pull the transmission out, and we'll get in there and start doing the clutch. Alright, I've got the cross member out, I've got hydraulics off the clutch, exhaust is out of the way, starter is off, shifters are off, drive shafts are out. We're kind of cruising. And now it's time to undo the last of these bolts for the engine to transmission and the inspection cover. And we should be pulling this thing out here in a second. I decided to leave the transfer case on just because I don't think it really needs to come off for any reason. I've got this transmission jack, so we should be able to like pull this thing off without struggling too much. So a few more bolts to undo, and then this thing is out of there. All right, I think I got all the bolts out. Time to wrangle this thing out of here. It's close. Let's go down a little bit. There it goes. Coming out of there. There we go. Yay! Let's see what we're working with now. Junk in my eye. All right, transmission's out. I still have all 10 of my fingers. That's good. I had problems with the clutch slipping on this, and now that I'm under here, this thing looks like a brand new clutch, and it's a Luke or a Luck brand, which is usually pretty good. But I'm kind of committed now. I'm gonna go ahead and pull it off, see what's going on with the clutch. Probably pull the flywheel off because I'm actually going to be putting a Centerforce clutch in here, and I've got a weighted flywheel, which kind of helps with rock crawling. We'll get into that when I get the parts, but I wanted to get all this off and see what's going on here. This is all oily, and it's usually because of the rear main seal on these things. The 4-liter is notorious for a leaky rear main seal. So I'm going to pull this off. That was coming off anyways. I'm going to clean that. To do the rear main seal, I'll probably end up pulling the oil pan and the rear main cap. So it's all coming apart even a little bit more than it is now. Oh, jeez. All right. Flywheel off. Inspection cover off. Kind of leaky. I think a lot of this problem with the oil may have actually been from the oil filter housing. But regardless, I'm going to do a rear main on it because I'm already here. Yay, Jeeps. All right, I got the oil pan off. It's looking pretty good. This thing actually has had a recent oil pan gasket. So the rear main seal has probably also been changed, but I'm going to throw a new one in it anyways. But look at this. Oh. Right here, I had a noise from the front of the engine. That's the timing chain. Pretty sure that's where my noise was coming from. That shouldn't be anywhere near that loose. So I was second guessing myself as far as taking this thing apart this far, and now I'm kind of glad that I did. So, all right, I'm going to clean up some parts and go to the auto parts store, get some stuff on order. And hopefully in the next couple days, this thing will be going back together. All right, I got all the bolts off, the oil slinger off of here. I'm gonna throw the crank bolt back in, and I'm gonna rotate this around until my timing marks line back up. The timing mark, I believe, is right over here. Anyways, there's a dot on each one of these gears that needs to line with each other, and that'll tell you that the crank is in the right position with the cam. You can pull everything off, line the new stuff up the same way, and put it all back together. Basically, that gets you back around to top dead center on the compression stroke. All right, there's our mark. This is the mark that we're looking for. You can kind of see it coming around. So if I get that to come around, getting close. Oh geez, dropped you guys, sorry. All right, we're close there, and the other timing mark is also lining up. You can see it right there. So that one and this one over here need to be in line with each other. Basically, you draw a line from that hole to that crank hole bolt, and then line those dots up, and then you know you're at top dead center compression stroke. So let me set the phone down and make sure that I'm all good. Alright, I got the new timing set on. I've already kind of got the camshaft bolt in there tight, and I went ahead and put this little spring-loaded follower dowel back in there. Oil slinger's on, but you can kind of see like behind that oil slinger is the alignment mark, and that one lines up with that alignment mark. And if you were to draw a line between the crank, the cam, and those two alignment marks, this should all line up. So I'm going to call that a win. And oh, you can see here, this is about how much deflection it has now. And what happens there is there's a little plastic follower block, kind of a tensioner, and that will end up going inside of the timing cover. And that's sort of a wear item that just kind of rides right about here and keeps that deflection to a minimum. So it's going back together. Yay! I really don't like doing this kind of work. Alright, I'm putting everything back together. This is a timing cover. I got it all cleaned up. Put the new crank seal in. I figured I'd show you my trick on doing gaskets and RTV. So I usually don't use a ton of it. I'm using some ultra gray right now because it's what I have and it hadn't already gone bad. So I usually just do like a little smear on these gaskets, both sides, and then the key is here. I just go through and smear it until it's just got an even, like, really light film on it. Come on. I really don't like when you throw a gasket on and tighten the bolts and you end up with just sealant everywhere. So this usually gets the job done nice and even and not a ton of it on there. Clean my hands up and we'll go put it on the truck. Sorry, the Jeep. Oh dang, I almost forgot that. Timing chain guide tensioner thing. That gets put right in there. Okay, well that would have been a problem if I would have forgot that. Alright, back to business. I'm going to do the rear main seal on this. These engines have a two-piece rear main seal. Half of it is in here in the main cap. The other half is up here in the engine. If you do this right, you can knock the seal out with like a punch, and you push it up and through, take the rear main seal out of there, and then you go and put the new one in the same way, knock the clean new seal in, and that's good to go. And then put the other half here in the main cap, bolt it together, and then you won't have an oil leak for like 15 to 25 miles because it's a Jeep. Alright, see if I can get this rear main out of here. Ah, it's working. Sweet, can get some pliers on that. There it is. Ah, yay! Top half of the rear main. Alright, Matt's got the transmission just about done, and I am putting the rear main seal in this main cap. It's pretty self-explanatory. Pulled the old one out, cleaned up the gunk. The new rear main seal fits right in that channel, and it actually like locks into these little grooves so you can't even put it in wrong. I'll get that in place, and then I'll knock the upper one in just like I knocked the upper one out. And then when I'm all said and done, I'll just take a little bit of sealant and put it right here on the corners, and that'll keep the oil from shooting right out the back of the engine, hopefully. That's the main goal on doing this. Keep the engine oil in the engine. It's Labor Day, so we're going to do just that. We're going to put this transmission back in the Jeep. We're going to put a brand new Centerforce clutch on the back of the engine with a new weighted flywheel. All of these items here should help with the rock crawling aspect of this Jeep. If you watched the Dirt Everyday where we built it originally, you would know that I was having a little bit of a hard time in the big rocks, clutch slipping, not quite low enough gears. So that weighted flywheel should help keep things spinning, not stall the engine so much. And the new clutch should help with clamping force and keeping that thing alive for a little bit longer. So we'll go over here to the truck, the Jeep. I'm gonna replace that pilot bearing real quick, and then it's go time. We'll get that flywheel on, we'll get the new clutch disc on, we'll get the transmission in, and then hopefully before long I can fire this puppy back up. Alright, here's the new clutch disc. You can see there, it'll tell you which side's the flywheel side. I've got the assembly tool that it comes with. That goes up here on the flywheel, which is all torqued, and the new pilot bearing. So you essentially just get that to line up in your pilot bearing, and then that alignment tool stays in place until you put your disc on. Your pressure plate on. So that's gonna want to fall out right now, so I gotta use two hands, sorry. There's that. There we go. The throwout bearing is all in place. Everything's greased up. The clutch fork is in and clipped where it's supposed to be. Let's put this whole unit back in the rig. Come on. Just taking my transmission for a walk. Let's go over this whole thing here. Jeep 4-liter inline 6 with a brand new clutch. That couples up to this AX15 transmission, manual 5-speed. And then that goes to this Midnight Metalworks D300 transfer case. This thing is awesome. It's a gear-driven case. It's based off a Dana 300, but it's all billet case halves. I've also got a 4-to-1 gear set in that, 1350 outputs front and rear, and it's got a JB custom fab shift lever system. So it's actually twin stick, so you can do front dig with this case if you want. That's when you run front wheel drive only and use that to like pivot around obstacles and stuff. So anyways, pretty rad setup. This is all going up in there right now. See if I don't have to fight this thing too bad. Gosh, that still sounds bad. It still sounds really bad. It's an old engine. It's an old Jeep. And I only have like a week and a half or 2 weeks left to finish all this other stuff up on here. So I'm going to go ahead and run this. It's got really good oil pressure. Has a new timing chain. It's got a new rear main seal. It's got a new clutch. I think it's time to address some other problems with it. Thanks for watching this Dirt Head Shed. I got a whole lot of work to do.